Okay guys, I'm gonna have to do this kind of fast, so this is the video that I had promised everyone I was going to do, demonstrating a platform snare. I'm going to go over the materials kind of quick and then demonstrate putting everything together and demonstrate it working. Okay. So just bear with me. I hadn't done this in a while. It's been a couple of years, so maybe this one will work out. If not, I'll make another video with some better materials, but it should work. Basically, what it is, you have a snare set to a platform with a trigger that when the animal steps on the platform, it releases the trigger, setting the snare around his leg or front leg, back leg, whichever one is in the snare when the trigger is set. So here we go. What you're gonna need is you'll have to have two, about foot to 2 foot maybe, sticks sharpened on both ends. That's what's gonna go in the ground. You'll need 2 sticks about half that long. One you can see I have notched on the side. That is the one we're going to tie to the top of that. The other one, this one, is going to be your trigger release. The only thing that will hold it to the snare will be the force of the pin. And then you have several sticks somewhere around the same length. That is going to be your platform. Now, what I'm going to be using for the actual snare is some stranded copper wire. It was out of a old straightening iron. I took both strands, twisted them together, and then you can see I made a loop on the end and then ran the excess through here. Now what we're going to do, I haven't done this yet, I'm going to make a loop on this end. So I'm going to try to set my phone up for just a second so you can kind of see me working. Hang on just a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and make another loop on this end. This is going to be so that the string, the cordage that's tied to the spring up here, will go through that. This is some cable that I had found on a job. It has a loop already made in one end, kind of a heavier gauge. You can see it's sort of springy. This would be something that would be good for a snare for a larger animal, say a coyote or something like that. The only bad thing is once you let off the pressure with this, you see what happens. It releases. However, with the copper wire, it does not. Once this is tight around that animal's leg, it will remain tight. They cannot chew through this. So this is why I like to use stranded copper wire for the set. The next thing you're going to need is your trigger pin, and you can see that I notched it out in the middle. That is where your cord is going to tie. Don't cut too deep whenever you make the pin, because if you cut too deep, the pressure from the limb or whatever, tree, whatever you're using for the spring, if it's too deep, you'll cut. The pressure will pull right through it. So that's your trigger. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come over here, and as you can see, I've got my string, and it's tied to part of a mimosa tree, which is very springy. And here in Mississippi, we have plenty of these. And I just got some paracord. This is some camping cord that I got at Walmart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie that through this loop. And please bear with me, because I am doing this all by myself. My wife was supposed to help me film, but my little boy was determined he was going to throw a fit because we wouldn't let him go down to the pond. So anyway, make a couple of good knots through that. And as you can see, I have my string just a little bit too long. So, very simple adjustment. Ooh. Pull this down, wrap it a couple of times around the limb. I know I'm probably blinding you with the sun, but I'm having to work, like I said, by myself. What you want to do is you want to wrap this up enough that your snare, whenever the spring is released all the way up, you can see the snare is well off the ground. All right, hang on just a second again. Set that down, pull this down here, and tie it off where that won't be slipping. Try to tie it as tight as possible. About 3 or 4 overhand knots. Alright, about 3 or 4 overhand knots, and your snare is off the ground. Now, like I said, I'm hoping that when I get this in here, it will hold. So, here we go. Alright, we'll take the first stick. Let me see if I can set this down where y'all can still view it. We're going to just drive that down in the ground. At least half the distance. Measure out between your stakes right there. Drive the other one into the ground. And you want it to where the soil is kind of wet here today. It's been raining for like 3 or 4 days, so it may be just a little bit on the hook side. Take you a piece of cord. I'm hoping that you are able to see this. And on the first side, go ahead and start your wraps. And just wrap everything around to where it will be tight. Once you tie it, tie it off twice. Go ahead and give it a couple of wraps around the string that you've tied, and tie it off 2 or 3 more times again. Cut off your excess. Get you another little length of cord and do the same thing on the other side. Tie it off once or twice. I usually do about 2 overhand knots. That way I have enough access to take it and go around it a couple of times. That's so that this one does not slip. And that is going to be your frame for your snare. Cut your excess off. Alright, this is what you got. Alright, pretty good. Now, next thing you need to do is you have to take a piece of string and tie it to your trigger here. So, hang on, let me do that. One, 2 wraps. And tie it off. Try to make the knot as tight as possible. You don't want that slipping out of your groove. So try to make it as tight as possible. 2 or 3 overhand knots should get it tightened down. And what I like to do, especially on the trigger, is there's my trigger pin tied to my snare. Sorry, my camera shut off, so I had to do it in 2 videos. Anyway, got to get this done quickly. What I'm going to do next is get everything set up. I'm going to set the snare and see if it's going to hold, and then we'll put the platform up and everything else. So, give me just a minute. Boy, this would be so much better if I had my wife down here. This is the thing about survival, though. Sometimes you have to work by yourself. So, anyway, here we go. Oh, Lord. This is sometimes a very hard snare to set. If you don't have it in the right place, it is very hard to set. Especially by yourself. It is also a very easy snare to trigger. Alrighty, and there we go. Alright, you can see how I've got the snare set. When you push down on this, it will release that and allow the snare to take off. Now, the next thing you do is you take your sticks and you place them. Now, like I said, this is just crude. I would do this a whole lot better, and my platform would come out at a better slant if I was actually setting this to catch an animal, but I'm not. I'm just demonstrating how this works. So you set your platform up like so with all your little sticks. Then you take the snare and you open it up, and you want to make sure that that loop is really well opened so that when the animal steps on it, it doesn't snag on the wire anywhere. Most of the time the force from it will... I'm gonna have to set this down for a second so I can get this just right, but anyway, give me just a second. Okay. Now then, your snare will be like that. The next thing I would do would be put some leaves across it, kind of over it and everything, so that it's not visible. And here we go. Alright, the animal comes along. He comes up on here, he steps on that, and he is snared. Now then, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got something out of it, and get out there and let's see if you can make one yourself.